Good morning. Well, hi everybody. Good morning. Let's just jump right in.
Yep.
Why don't I turn things over to Linda, who can begin the proceedings by introducing everyone I just introduced.
Good morning, everyone. I'll note that Jesse Olzak, representing the Director of the Division of the Budget, is participating in the meeting via video conference from the New York State Division of Budget Conference Center and Capitol Building, Room 131 in Albany. And Bethada Gonzalez is participating from the Syracuse Regional Office, 620 Erie Boulevard, Suite 312. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Notice that these locations have been made public, and the public has the right to attend and observe proceedings from those locations. I will ask for motions and seconds to call to order the March 7, 2019 meetings of the New York State Housing Finance Agency, the New York State Affordable Housing Corporation, the New York State Mortgage Agency, the New York State Mortgage Agency Mortgage Insurance Committee, and the New York State Housing Finance and Program Committee. May I please have motions for HFA and AHC?
So moved.
And thank you. A motion for SONYMA?
So moved.
And a
So moved.
second? Second. Thank you. A motion for the
Yeah,
Mortgage
smooth.
Insurance
Very
Committee?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
Thank you. And a motion, please, for the Finance and Program Committee of HFA?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Jesse.
Jesse.
As items are presented to each board and committee throughout today's meeting, these motions and seconds will be used unless specific items call for a different vote or unless any board member or committee member wishes to record his or her vote differently.
I'll now turn things over to President Ruth Ann Visnauskas for her President's report. Thank you, Ruth Ann.
Thank you, Ken, and good morning, everyone, on this extremely cold morning. This morning, the SONYMA Board and the Mortgage Insurance Committee will consider insurance for two projects representing 195 units of affordable housing in New York and Monroe counties. And at AHC, we'll report on new awards of nearly $2 million for the construction of 57 units, all in counties outside of New York City. Also being presented will be various consent, informational, and administrative items for the board's consideration. And we were all just together about 3 weeks ago, but we still managed to squish some new activities in that short time. At the end of February, I went to the red flag bill signing at John Jay College with Governor Cuomo and House Speaker Nancy Pelosi. The red flag bill is also known as the Extreme Risk Protection Order bill, which prevents individuals who show signs of being a threat to themselves or to others from purchasing or possessing firearms. So there had been a lot of discussion in the wake of many of the school shootings that teachers and others had seen evidence and were worried, and this is something that really would give those teachers a tool to be able to try to prevent those things from happening. So it was a great event. It was great to have the House Speaker in the state. At the end of February, we met with Assemblymember Harvey Epstein to continue, who's a new member of the Assembly, to discuss housing issues that affect his Lower East Side of Manhattan district. We also did an event up in our Albany office for Black History Month, which was great and very well attended. On March 1st, we did an event with the new Attorney General, Letitia James. That was a press conference announcing a lawsuit against a owner whose name is Zara Realty. And the owner, Zara, was targeting tenants in more than 38 rent-stabilized buildings that they own by charging excessive fees, like if you need a key, it's $200, coercing people to sign improper leases. So they would tell people, we're not going to give you keys if you don't sign this lease, asking people to give them their Social Security numbers in order to get leases, illegally raising rents, also acting as a broker. So in the state of New York, a landlord cannot also act as a broker, and they were, in fact, had sort of a subsidiary that was acting as a broker. So they were extracting dollars and sort of a very, very bad actor. And the Tenant Protection Unit worked for 2 years to get that, all the sort of the evidence together to that, and then we ended up working with the Attorney General's office to bring an 11-count case. So it's great. We feel very confident it will be successful, and is sort of the point of the Tenant Protection Unit to make sure that bad actors can't continue to do illegal actions against tenants. So that was a great event. And lastly, but the day before yesterday, I went up to Albany for the annual REDC meeting. So I am on the sort of leadership committee with a couple other commissioners, and we met with all of the REDC leadership to talk about goals for the next year. It's, the 9th year of the REDCs, and there's about $750 million that they sort of control through their sort of coordinated planning efforts. It's really a great process, and not one that the state ever saw before, that's allowed really sort of meaningful, I think, collaboration and partnership among the counties, and allows us to then reinforce all those efforts with the work that we do. So it's a great group and a great effort. And with that, I will turn it back to you.
Thanks, Ruth Ann. Any questions for Ruth Ann on her very helpful presentation? I just have one. Some years, Ruth Ann, there have been themes for the RADCs. Do you know?
This year.
And this year, what's the theme, if you will?
Theme, which you will certainly like, is workforce development.
Oh, no kidding. That
That could have been like a setup here.
That's
right?
fantastic.
Yeah.
I'm so happy to hear that.
Yes, it should be great.
And also, just so, with respect to the resources, and I'm thinking of some of our AHC grant programs, do some of those resources run through the regional council process, or is it, you know what I mean?
No, so
Because we see a lot of the same groups that
Yep.
are applying, like Long Island groups, right? They're coming through regional councils and they're coming to the agency directly.
Yes.
So how's that divided up?
So AHC itself does not, but our other, in our Office of Community Renewal, the funds that go through there that are our CDBG and other resources like that do go through the CFA and through that process. So we do have a chunk of resources that go through that.
Right, right. Really helpful process for local grassroots, community-based engagement and community priorities, right, for allocation of scarce state resources.
100%. I mean, I think people said that counties always competed prior to that process, and now counties actually coordinate to draw still compete, but they also coordinate to draw resources to their area and to direct them. So I think it's been a great process.
Great. Thank you. Linda?
The minutes of the HFA, AHC, Sunny May Mortgage Insurance Committee, and the HFA Finance and Board Committee meetings held on February 14th, 2019 shall be deemed approved absent any corrections from the members or directors. Does anyone have any? Right. If there are none, we are going to take the requisite steps to go into executive session. May I please have a motion and a second to go into executive session pursuant to Section 105F of the Open Meetings Law to discuss the financial, credit, or employment history of a particular corporation. Assuming the first and second previously entered for all the agencies, those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
We are now in executive session. I'll ask for a motion and second to reconvene the public session. Is there a motion?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
We're back in public session, and I'll note that no votes were taken during executive session. Now to you. You will now move.
Yeah, and I'm just saying, should we turn these in?
Oh, yeah, I'll,
Print materials from executive session should be returned.
yeah.
Alex, something's happened with the screens in Albany. You know how the camera's sort of like
It,
moving on the
it went beside
the
her.
tripod. Does Bethaides? So we can't.
When she speaks, she'll become large.
She would have to raise her hand to the ceiling in order to be called.
Beside
All
her,
right.
can you?
There it is. I'm just trying to. We're just trying to square the camera on you,
And we
Bethaides.
can also hear her speak.
And I'd say the same for Diana. But
Well,
she-
Diana's not there.
Jesse, by the way, thank you for chiming in and commenting on making the comments that you did a moment ago. That was really helpful.
Okay.
We're going to try to fix
And I totally agree.
All right.
Let's go back.
Take it back. The bottom two.
Yeah. We're now going to move to the shared action item for this morning's meeting. Materials in connection with this item were sent under separate cover to board members. It's item 2, a resolution authorizing an increase to the BAM budget and an increase to the maximum amount that can be paid to firms on the IT consultant panel. And Betsy is going to present this item. Good morning, Betsy.
Good morning. So as you might recall, in December 2018 meeting of the board, there was an increase approved of $3.7 million to the BAM budget. Since then, we have engaged partner independent analysis of the BAM project, the recommendations of which were presented to the board in the February meeting. We, as a team, have made significant progress both on the recommendations that were presented, particularly around governance of the project, and we've simultaneously pushed forward and made quite significant progress on the actual implementation. The build of the SAP portion of the system is almost complete, which means that we're moving to the phase of loading data and testing it, and we're re-engaging ProLink as we speak. So we would like to continue to push forward on this great progress of the project, and to do so are asking for a 1-month increase to the total BAM project budget, and also correspondingly to the IT consultant services cap to cover the costs of March. Note that that's an amendment to the resolution that was put forward, which had included increases through April 11th. We have sharpened our pencils since generating the resolution and feel that we can manage costs and cash flow to only ask for the March portion of this table, which means that we will be asking for an increase, or I'm requesting authorization for an increase to the total BAM budget of $3 million. That is the rounding of the March column that you can see on page 3 of the material, and a corresponding increase to the IT consultant services of 2.2, you will see reflects the labor subtotal.
Betsy, thank you. Any questions from directors, including Bethaida and Jesse, we're getting various images of you now on the screen, but we can see you, which is nice. We lost Jesse, but we see his,
Maybe we can
see
see
his
the other
hand.
side.
We
Oh,
lost
there
the
we
hand.
are.
There we go. There we go. Any questions from directors for Betsy on her request for this authorization of spending for the BAM project for the month of March? Hearing none, let's turn it over to Linda.
And now before the boards is resolution of the New York State Housing Finance Agency, the State of New York Mortgage Agency, and the Affordable Housing Corporation authorizing an increase to the BAM budget and an increase to the maximum amount that can be paid to the firms on the IT consultant panel as amended. Assuming the first and second previously entered for HFA, SONYMA, and AHC, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 The motion is carried and the resolution adopted.
Linda, thank you. Betsy, thank you. Ken, thank you.
Luck in the coming weeks.
Yeah, good luck. My suspicion is we'll see you again in a month if that's it,
Every month.
with an update. Very good. Let me take a moment to introduce a special guest who's a member of the public, but a new friend of mine, Nick Stewart. Say hi, Nick. Nick is a Coro Fellow who is spending at least, a month as part of his rotation through the Coro Fellows program with me up at Bronx Community College. And I said, come on down to Beaver Street today to experience one of our board meetings. So, Nick, thanks for coming. Thanks, everybody, for we need members of the public to be present at these sessions, and so good to have you.
What did we do to the last member of the public?
Good point. Let's go on. The next item on our agenda this morning is an information item. No discussions required unless board members or directors so request. It's item 3, the current agency procurements in the lobbying restricted period. Hearing no comments, let's continue. We'll move to items on our agenda that are to be considered for mortgage insurance by the State of New York Mortgage Agency Mortgage Insurance Committee and the SONYMA Board of Directors. I think this is going to be our friend Mike Friedman. Item 4, want to come forward, Mike, and present item 4? Sure. Thank you very much.
Good morning.
Morning.
9-21 Sherman Avenue comprises the mod rehab of 92 units of low and moderate income housing. New tenants moving into the project will be subject to income restriction up to 120% of AMI, although rents vary under rent stabilization between 40 and 105% of AMI. This is an HPD PLP project in addition to the $9.9 million first mortgage. There's a $9.9 million HPD subsidy loan and a full Article 11 real estate tax exemption. And existing tenants, the rents in the project will be repriced in order to cover the new mortgage debt, and existing tenants who are eligible will receive tenant-based Section 8 vouchers. The project is being developed by Frank Anolante and Joseph Zutolo, who are principals of Lemley and Wolf. And Exhibit F, shows this is the 19th loan that we've insured for entities controlled by Lemley and Wolf with total exposure of $97 million. And we started insuring loans for entities controlled by Anolante and Zutolo over 15 years ago. And the first loan that we insured was a $419,000 mortgage on 115 Post Avenue in Inwood. So they and we have come a long way together since then.
Well, they stayed in the same neighborhood, haven't they?
They have. They have. And the insured loan amount is $108,500 per unit, which equals 46% of the project's total development cost of $229,000 per unit. And the project would break even with a pro forma 12% vacancy, vacancy and collection loss, or an 11% increase in operating expenses. And there's $1 million in developer equity in the project.
What form is that equity in?
No, it's actual.
Cash equity?
Cash equity. It's not developer fee.
Very good. Other questions or comments for Mike on this project up on Sherman Avenue in Inwood? I'm partial myself to Exhibit D, the map, since it prominently features Bronx Community College. Thank you very much. Short walk this project is from my office, where I'll be going with Nick in a little while. All right, if there are no further questions on that, Linda, would you do the honors?
And now before the Mortgage Insurance Committee and the State of New York Mortgage Agency Board is a resolution of the Mortgage Insurance Committee and the State of New York Mortgage Agency recommending approval for mortgage insurance and a commitment for the provision thereof for 921 Sherman Avenue, Manhattan, York County. Assuming the first and second previously entered for the Mortgage Insurance Committee and for the Sunny May Board, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
The motion is carried and the resolution adopted.
Very good. The next item is item 5.
Okay.
Are we
I'm
good?
sorry, I condensed down the votes of the committee and the board.
You know, we thought we'd condense the whole process, and
I'm
well,
trying my
we're
best.
trying to set a record, just,
Hey, let's go.
getting out of here before lunchtime. All right. Item 5, resolutions of the Mortgage Insurance Committee, State of New York Mortgage Agency, and of the Sunny May Board recommending approving 100% mortgage insurance on a CPC $23 million permanent first mortgage loan for 270 East Avenue up in Rochester, Monroe County, of course. Mike, on you.
This project comprises the development of 103 units and 13,000 square feet of commercial space. The project will have 21 moderate income units, 82 units of workforce housing. And the mod income units are restricted to tenants with incomes up to 80% of the Rochester area AMI. And the projected rents for the remaining units are between 105 and 150% of the Rochester AMI. There's a $1.5 million subordinate loan from the City of Rochester and a 10-year pilot agreement with the city. The first-year taxes are projected to be $54,000, and when the pilot expires, the taxes will go to $509,000 in year 11. We did a cash flow projection, assuming a 2% increase in rents and a 3% increase in expenses. And in year 11, with full taxes, the project would have a pro forma 1:10 income to expense ratio. The project is being developed by David Krista and Lacey Katz. And Krista is a very experienced upstate developer and builder who's completed over $6 billion of projects throughout upstate New York. And Lacey Katz, who's a vice president at Moody's, is part of a wealthy Rochester-based family.
Wealthiest VP at Moody's I've ever seen.
I'm sure.
Well, that's not
This is the first time I've ever seen
I hope she's not rating our bonds.
a VP investor.
right. The insured loan amount is $230,000 per unit, which equals 73% of the project's total development cost of $308,500 per unit. The developers will have $7.3 million in cash equity in the project, equal to 23% of the total development cost. And
What's the form of that equity?
it's cash equity. It's not deferred developer fee. The project would break even with a pro forma 20% vacancy and collection loss, a 20% increase in operating expenses, or 86% of the commercial space vacant.
Questions for Mike from anyone? Mike, could you? I worry about the pilot, the expiration of the pilot after 10 years, and you've got some assumptions built in to say the sky won't fall. But can you talk a little more about that? Because what if the city of Rochester, for example, in that 10-year period, changes there's an assumption about how much their property taxes are going to go up. The city is hard-pressed financially. And at the same time, so what happens to a tenant if that increase is more than what we're projecting? Does a tenant, can't make their rent payment because the pilot wears away or, rolls off, and then the owner sticks this huge rent increase on the tenants? What happens? Or am I seeing a problem that's not a problem?
I mean, it's hard to forecast, but if if the net operating income from the project remains flat for 10 years, doesn't get any better but doesn't get any worse, the project would break even in year 11. You know, assuming the inflation assumptions that were
Right.
projected, it would underwrite at 110 to 1. If nothing happens, if it just remains level for 10 years, the project would break even. You know, with very substantial developer equity and strong, you know, controlling principles. So, you know, so I'm more confident than I would be if it were owned by a not-for-profit, or if it had very little cash flow. But the project, you know, assuming nothing happens, should have cash flow. Currently, it's projected to have cash flow of $350,000. And if it just remains constant for 10 years, the taxes will go up about $450,000. So the project would come very close to breaking even with no increase in NOI over 10 years.
And for, I mean, they granted the pilot and they must support the project, but the city of Rochester defines, you know, 150% of local AMI as affordable? Like, how affordable is this really? Or, you know?
20% of the units are affordable,
Okay.
80% of the AMI. And that's pursuant to a regulatory agreement with the city.
Got it, okay.
The other units are essentially,
Market.
Market.
So it's an 80-20,
yes.
sort of. Sorry, not to call it that, but 20% of the units are affordable, you know, in that market in Rochester.
Yes.
Just to build on Ken's questions, are really helpful. Workforce housing is in this instance defined as what? Anybody?
Yes.
You're supposed to have a job.
Oh, if you don't, you fit the 20, I guess. But
It's basically
Is there a-
expanded housing supply.
It means it's not
Right,
senior housing. It's
right,
not
right.
senior housing.
but is there right?
It's a way of,
And it's not tax credit housing.
Is there is there a way to build in, or do they have reserves being built up during the first 10 years? Because the blow in year 11
Big blow, right?
goes from 50,000 to 500,000.
right, that's mine.
So is there a required in any document that they build up from excess cash flow reserves? And
The only required reserve is a repair and replacement reserve. There isn't a requirement for an operating reserve. They'll have $7 million in equity in the project. And they're very strong developers. You know, sort of what I was saying, it's not a not-for-profit. And I think if it were, there might be some requirement to build up an operating reserve. I don't think it's necessary, given the principles of the development entity.
And they
And
have a
it's
lot,
not,
they have a
it's
lot
not
of
required by the
games.
city of Rochester.
Right.
And our policy is generally not to second-guess local government when they craft a regulatory agreement.
Jonathan, thank you. Chris, anybody else? We're good? All right. Linda?
So now before the Mortgage Insurance Committee and the State of New York Mortgage Agency Board for approval's resolution of the Mortgage Insurance Committee and of the State of New York Mortgage Agency recommending approval of mortgage insurance and a commitment for the provision thereof for 270 East Avenue, Rochester, Monroe County. Assuming the first and second previously entered for the Mortgage Insurance Committee and the State of New York Mortgage Agency Board, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
The motions are carried and the resolutions are adopted.
What did you just say?
Read item 6.
We're now on to item 6.
Oh, did we do our ayes and yeas?
Yes.
Oh,
Okay, sorry, missed that.
I apologize.
We had a little sidebar there. Let's go to item 6.
Yeah.
Thank you, Thin. We're going to move to the SONYMA action item we have this morning, which also requires Mike to stay at the table. It's a resolution approving estimated excess balance in the mortgage insurance fund. Talking about excess balances, John, it's a different type of excess balance.
Pursuant to the Public Authorities Law, the agency is required to make a preliminary determination of the mortgage insurance fund's estimated excess balance for the 12-month period ending each March 31st and to certify such excess balance. And the calculation takes into mortgage reporting surtax received from the 62 counties, operating expenses of the mortgage insurance fund, the volume of new commitments issued as we set aside reserves equal to 20% of the liability amount of new commitments, and claims paid. and the estimated excess balance for the year ending March 31st based on anticipated closings in the month of March, principally HFA, Open Reso, D&E. The projection is that the estimated excess balance will be $12 million for this state fiscal year. And the Board of Directors is asked to adopt the attached resolution approving the preliminary determination of an estimated excess balance of $12 million.
Mike, thank you. Questions?
Substantially less than it's been for the last couple of years. isn't it?
Yes, last year it was $52 million.
Right.
And the $40 million variance, since we leveraged up 5-to-1, we set aside reserves equal to 20% of the liability amount. Evidence is that we did $200 million more in commitments this year than last year. And that's due in part to the first open reso of 18 closed in April. And the first open reso of 19 is going to close in March. So there's an extra open reso deal in this state fiscal year. And normalizing it, if that had closed the first one in March, the increase would be somewhat less dramatic. Nonetheless, it's $200 million more in commitments than last year.
Good. Business is brisk.
Yeah.
Mike, thank you. Any other questions for Mike on this, on the excess balance? Okay, good. Linda?
Now before the HFA now before the State of New York Mortgage Agency Board for approval is a resolution of the State of New York Mortgage Agency regarding the estimated excess balance in the Mortgage Insurance Fund for the 12-month period ending March 31, 2019. Assuming the first and second previously entered for SONYMA, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 The motion is carried and the resolution adopted.
The next item is the MIF activity report. It's item 7, the activity report for the Mortgage Insurance Committee for the period from February 1st, 2019 through February 28th. That would be, well, last month. Mike, this is interesting.
What's interesting here is this is tab 7, and the last report in tab 7, which shows the monthly tax surcharge collections. In January, it was $19.5 million, as compared with $12 million in the same month last year, $17 million in the same month the preceding year. And in February, it was $17.9 million, as compared with $14.5 last year and
Only
12.9 the
13.
previous year. So it's hard to discern a trend from 2 months, but it's moving in the right direction, and it hopefully evidences an increased level of economic activity in the state. Assuming
Yeah, what do you
March-
assume for March, the month that just ended?
March
Or
is-
the RIN, sorry.
March is usually a low month. You can see in
Yeah.
last year was only 10 million, the year before was 11.5. Assuming it comes in, say 12 million this year, we could have about 166 million in surtax, as compared with 156 million last year. And this is a turnaround from the beginning of the year, when it was actually less than last year. So
Right.
it looks like it could be.
We'll end up between 16 and 17.
Yeah, it looks like it could be about 6% higher than last year.
All right, very good. That's helpful.
Good. Thank you.
That is, is that an action item, Linda, or just a? No, that's
your
right.
report.
Well, Mike, thank you. We're going to move on to something else now. Thanks very much. Good to see you. We'll now move on to the item on our agenda that's to be considered for financing by the HFA Finance and Program Committee and the HFA Board.
James?
What's that?
James.
James. That's right. These are resolutions. We're going to ask James to come on down. Resolutions of the New York State Housing Finance Agency, Finance and Program Committee, and the New York State Housing Finance Agency recommending approval and authorizing the issuance of convertible option bonds, COPs, to recycle volume cap for use in connection with certain projects in our HFA 2019 pipeline. This is a very interesting strategy, and James is going to present it, and folks have had a chance to take a look at it, and I suspect we'll have questions. But James, good morning.
Good morning. So, as you are aware, the agency proceeded forward with sort of approving a COB in light of the 2017 tax changes as a means of preserving volume cap, not knowing it was going to come out of Congress. It never actually went into they didn't end up using it. And at the time, too, for recycling, we had the city facility. Since then, the agency has taken, as we came to the board last year, we amended all of the last 4 years of series resolutions in the open so that we could begin to capture recycling on an ongoing basis. So we're capturing 5 million here, 10 million here, and we're accumulating it, put into our June deals. In addition, we've had a lot of people started to come in for requests for recycling volume cap, and what we did with the facility was we were able to capture a lot of the 80/20s volume cap. What's happened is that right now the yield curve is such that the tax-exempt curve is much lower than the taxable curve on the front end. So as a result, we can sell tax-exempt bonds very inexpensively and sort of reinvest it above that rate, restricting it obviously under IRS guidelines. But the fact is that there's really no cost to preserving these volume caps. So what we're doing is we've identified several projects. Right now we know we're going to have projects in our June open resolution. And we have up to 6 months to use it. So we're rolling out a new program that we can use, especially with the 80/20s, as they come in, that we can sell COBs to capture that volume cap and re-lend it out. And so it's a way to do a very costless way, and will be really add to the sort of the third set of tools that we've used around recycling. Now we had the facility place, if that ever makes sense again. And in fact, on a COB that we're considering, we've actually gone out to 7 banks to get actually what our bids back to see. But what we know is banks' their cost of funding is higher than the tax-exempt market, and why this is a good opportunity for the agency.
Questions? Questions for James on this? James, one, because we talked on the phone about it briefly. What are the I think you mentioned that when you have refinanced volume cap,
Yep.
there are some conditions with respect to the projects and how it's applied.
Absolutely. So there is basically the final maturity of the recycling volume cap. The volume cap cannot have a life effectively more than 34 years from the original date. So, and we have to basically recycle it within 4 years. So, and in addition, you have to use it within 6 months. So what we've done and what the COB allows us to do is effectively to create the bridging mechanism between what are the old loans and the new loans, and so that effectively there's continuity and that the bonds remain outstanding. And it's great because it provides, especially for some of the, where you're starting to see more projects come through that are condoed. And so that's where we're able to isolate the recycling volume cap and really cut down on, really save on volume cap by pushing to the limits. And because we're now having a lot of these pieces around, we're not hesitant to push a lot of the projects that come in to reduce the amount of volume cap that they're using. And that's across the board, and it's extensive in some cases.
Okay. Thank you. Questions? Clever, right? Very good.
Thanks, James.
Good. James, thank you. Linda, what do we have to do here?
And now before the HFA Finance and Program Committee and the HFA Board are resolutions to be adopted that were transmitted in connection with the item, which is a resolution of the New York State Finance Agency and the Program Committee recommending approval and authorizing the issuance of the convertible option bonds to recycle volume cap for use in connection with certain projects in the HFA 2019 pipeline. Assuming the first and second previously entered for the committee and the members, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
The motions are carried and the resolution adopted.
All right. Thanks, everybody. And James, thank you.
Yep.
Great. We're now going to move to the AHC consent item. It's item number 9 in our agenda this morning, resolution authorizing an award of grants for certain projects located outside New York City. Who's got the honors?
It's Dominic.
Dominic.
Usually, right, it's a consent item.
Oh, it is a consent item. All right. Linda, let's do it.
Okay, then now before the AHC Board is a resolution of the New York State Affordable Housing Corporation authorizing awards and granting funds for certain projects located outside the city of New York. Assuming the first and second previously entered for the AHC Board, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
The motion is carried and the resolution adopted. Assuming we're
There
good.
being no further business for
Really?
the...
Really?
Yep.
Yeah?
Wow.
Wow.
It was because I consolidated the MIC and
It
the
was that
Sunny
one
Bay
that
resolution.
one thing that you did saved us about 2 hours. There being no further items for the HFA Finance and Program Committee and the HFA itself, Sunny Bay and AHC boards, Linda will now ask at about 10:45
Wow.
It's all
a.m.
Nick.
for motions and seconds to adjourn this morning's meetings. So
Assuming-
Bethida can get to work and Jesse can get to work, and thank you all.
Jesse's not that busy. It's a
Oh,
slow time of
he's
year for
got
him.
nothing going on, those
Yeah.
30-day amendments. He did that in his sleep.
I'm sorry.
I think if the folks could send us the audit committee evaluation forms that
Yeah.
Gary Weinstock had sent.
Thank you. Thank you, Sheila.
Assuming the first and second entered for the HFA Finance and Program Committee, is all in favor of adjourning, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. The motions are carried and the committee meeting is adjourned. Assuming the first and second entered for the Mortgage Insurance Committee, all in favor of adjourning, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion is carried and the meeting is adjourned. Assuming the first and second previously entered for HFA, SONYMA, and the AHC boards, all in favor of adjourning, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motions are carried. The meetings are adjourned. Our next meeting is scheduled for Thursday, April 11th at 9 a.m.
All
Thank
right.
you, everybody.